on set.
Yes.
Were there any painful memories revisiting that were sort of challenging to be on set and controlling a crew with? I mean, it's your life story.
I guess I would say, the scene in the mental hospital was surprisingly powerful for me. It was like reliving, and that always, anytime I had ever seen my father in a hospital, very medicated, it had the feeling to me of a horror movie. It was like seeing someone stagger out that you just didn't really recognize. It was just sort of like seeing somebody gone in front of your eyes. So I think that's probably the. Do you have any other thoughts about that?
Well, I feel like probably the last scene.
Oh, the last scene. Yes, yes. The last scene was, we didn't shoot it. It wasn't the last scene we shot, of course, because that never works that way. But it was saying goodbye to the last scene where the girls say goodbye to the father was very moving for me. I felt my father had died in 1998, so it had a feeling of saying goodbye. I mean, it would have, if we'd shot it as the very last scene, it would have been probably more of a toll taken on me, but it was still quite emotional for me.
Being on set with your mom, reliving these experiences that you weren't privy to, not having been born at the time, did it give you an opportunity to learn more about your grandparents that you hadn't learned heretofore, that you could only do experientially on set? And what did you see about your mom on set that you hadn't known heretofore?
Well, to start with my grandparents, I mean, I know my grandmother really well, and really just doing this kind of, like, I have a great relationship with her, and just doing this kind of enhanced my relationship with her because I really understand how incredible she is and how incredible the things she's done are. And really, I mean, with my mother, I just learned that she's a really good boss. So she really is kind of, she's tough, but she's not mean. Like, she's not just gonna let anyone do whatever she wants. She gets what she wants done without being mean to anyone. So I was pretty impressed.
What about your grandfather?
And my grandfather, well, I never got to meet my grandfather, so doing this movie, I feel like I kind of got to know him, which is really incredible for me.
Now, acting for your mom is sort of like the ultimate method acting, even though your mom wasn't in the film. How did you accommodate a non-sibling actor and make her feel at home? And was there any sort of sibling rivalry that emerged? It's kind of interesting. You're working for your mom, but you've got this other person who's playing your sibling. Did you have to go out of your way to accommodate her? What was that dynamic like? How did you bond apart from the art of acting?
I feel like from the moment Ashley and I met, we kind of became sisters because we had a kind of relationship where we loved each other, but we were kind of always fighting, but we enjoyed spending time together, which is kind of just the way I am with my sister. So I feel like automatically there was just really good chemistry between us for the characters we were playing who fight a lot but really love each other. And so we were able to take that and go on set with that and work with that, which was really great.
Maya, did you have any? I'm sorry, were you going to say?
I was going to say they were both pretty feisty. They were feisty girls. They were, we were 11. Ashley had turned 9, right? But they had a similar energy, and they were equals,
How do you walk that line, saying we're now going to relive my painful childhood, and guess what? You get to do it. I'm glad you could laugh. That's great.
I guess that's the key to the whole thing. That's funny to me, but I had no qualms about that because I'd been telling my girls part of this writing the script came out of me telling my girls stories about their grandfather and not really trying to hide. He was a very open person about his illness and who he was, and so I wanted them to know him. So I was telling them stories about him and things he had done and things we had done as a family when I was a little girl, and also kind of reminding myself as I was telling them the stories that kids are very tough and resilient, and I wanted to remember that as I was raising my own kids because I didn't want to be worrying about them all the time. I wanted to, instead of worrying about them all the time, I wanted to trust that they would be able to deal with obstacles that came their way, which I think is somewhat missing in the current parenting culture. The free-range kids, I was a free-range kid. So I didn't have any qualms about that. I wanted her to understand it. I didn't feel like I had to protect her from any of that.
Can you tell me more about your mom dealing with your dad, the discriminatory workplace she faced? It was almost like Kramer versus Kramer where she decided to, I don't know that happened in real life, to let them stay with the father. What was that? What was her calculus in deciding they are going to stay with the father, they're better off even after she'd made it in New York? Was it simply there's more parks here?
It was that she really felt that my father was best suited to the domestic sphere. He was never going to have a really big he was never going to have a major career. He loved to cook. He loved to play with us. He loved to be with the kids. So I think she felt that in sort of the family breakdown and who takes what role, the role she could embrace was the role of the breadwinner. She couldn't get a job in Boston. New York was more open and to her as an African-American woman at that time, especially in the world of finance. Still, exactly. So when I think of that, I just think, I can't even believe it.
I know what she got paid on the dollar for the job
I don't.
she got.
Well, an interesting story is she said that she realized at one of the companies that she was working that her supervisor was handing out contracts. He wasn't thinking about this. He was just handing them out in the men's room. Sort of, they're all in the men's room, and he's saying, "Oh, so-and-so doesn't need that contract. Why don't you take that?" And she realized it was happening and waited outside the men's room. He came out and said, "Bill, I can't go in the men's room. You have to. I can't participate in that." Yeah. Well, yes.
How did you establish? I've got to get this important story across, but if I go too dark, I'm going to scare people away, so I'll lose the message of the film. How do you decide the overall cut of the film? Were there episodes of your life that you intentionally left out, or that you shot that simply didn't make it into the film? Like, how do you walk that line of tone for a mass audience? Because it can be a very dark subject. I'm dealing an understatement here.
Yes, it can. I mean, tonally, that was the big challenge of the movie. Not to go too dark and not to go too light, because it's not a light subject either. It's a serious subject. But I guess I focused on the fact that my father could have a temper, but we were never. I was never hurt, So I didn't feel scared of him that way, and so that was an important element to emphasize, is that he might go off the rails, but the girls aren't really in danger. But you don't want to go off the rails because you want him to hold it together, because I think, hopefully the audience cares about him as the movie goes along. So it was definitely the balance of that. I tried to get it proportionally in this 90-minute movie to what it was in real life. There's darkness in real life, but I wouldn't say that was the majority of, there's maybe 10% darkness and 90% good lightness, or something like that. I tried to get the proportion right.
Have you ever thought about cultivating this into a network, web, or cable series? I wonder the extent to which, if we took this subject matter, which is quietly destroying so many lives for so long, and made it a mass weekly show, a dramedy of sorts, do you think something like that could possibly work? It seems like it would be of great utility to the American viewing public when you consider how many persons are dealing with bipolar. Have you ever thought about possibly serializing this?
Well, we did talk. I think Mark Ruffalo and I talked about it at some point during the shooting. We thought, like, what if we could just really dive into these issues? Not have to, because in a 90-minute movie, you're trying to get to the essence. But if you're making a series or something, you can really dig into the mom character. That's a whole story unto itself. My mother's story. So I've thought about it, and I feel like from the response I've gotten from people, it seems that there's a high percentage. I mean, maybe what it is there's a high percentage of people suffering from bipolar. But I guess the movie also really speaks to what it's like to love someone who's struggling with this illness.
And you could put that on a TV show. It's an estimated 3%, which is 3 times any other nation on the planet.
I wonder if that's true.
Most nations average about 1%.
Right.
And this isn't proportional. We average about.
But that's not self-identified. That's diagnosed.
Relatively, yeah. And you think of undiagnosed, it's a whole other thing.
Yeah.
So,
because some cultures, it doesn't. They don't talk about it as much. I mean, even I feel like the conversation in this country could grow. I mean, I think the more people come out and try to say this is how I am and this is who I am and I can try and get treatment, that's all very healthy. But I think in other cultures, they haven't even gotten to that point.
Final question: if either of you or both of you could see a woman's face on American Money, whom would you like to see?
Harriet Tubman.
Harriet Tubman, top of your head.
I think
on the spot. It's an unfair question.
It's a really hard question.
Yeah. She's going to come up with something.
Sorry to fry your noodle. You're very gracious. It really is an on-the-spot question.
So really hard. Okay.
Bessie Coleman.
That wasn't
She's getting
right.
there,
That was
she's getting
that was
there.
that was.
Oh, I'm
close.
sorry. Okay.
Oh, I know. Margaret Sanger.
Oh, okay, dynamite. Upcoming projects either of you care to discuss?
My husband and I are currently, my husband who produced the film, we're currently writing a movie for Jack Black about a polka singer. It's a real life story about a guy who came from Poland, became a polka sensation, sort of the Liberati of polka in Pennsylvania, and then also ran a Ponzi scheme.
Really?
Yeah.
Dynamite.
Yeah. It's about the American dream.
I'm doing theater at my school.
Really?
Yeah.
Not good. Well done. I hope you write some more. I dare say what you can get from your mom could lend itself to quite a literary voice. And thanks for taking the time.
Thank you.
Thank you very much
Thank you.
for those great questions.